Hi, my name is Anthony, and I'm going to be talking about RxJS, which is Reactive Extension for JS. I have my contact information and all the sources that I've used to create this presentation. So, what is reactive programming? Reactive programming is basically an API for asynchronous programming with observable streams. And we use something called RxJS, which is the library for composing asynchronous and event-based programming by using observable sequences. So we need to understand, what is a stream? What's an observable? What is a subscription? What is an operator? And what is a subject? So a stream is a way to think of a sequence of data elements over time, right? We can say that the stream is a sequence of ongoing events ordered in time. For example, number of button clicks in 1 second. So all clicks will be grouped as a stream. Okay, so streams in RxJS can be captured using from one or multiple values, from an array of values, from an event, from a promise, from a callback. Well, that's it. If you understand that, then we can talk about observables. In reactive programming, observable subscribes to an observable. Then that observable reacts to whatever item or sequence of items observable emits. Okay, so let's see that with an example. So we can see this example of a timeout, and it's completing. It's creating a function, and we are basically emitting a timer sequence. RxObservables class has many functions to create observables from different kinds of data streams, such as events and event patterns. Okay. So next, we can look at what an observer is. So an observable will call basically the observer's next value method to provide data. And similarly, they can also call the error or observer complete method once it's done. And so how are things being listened to? So things are being listened to through what we call a subscription. Calling the subscribe method of observables, we can listen to the stream. To invoke the observable, we need to subscribe to it. Just creating observables will not are going to listen to the stream. We must have to invoke the observable by calling the subscribe method. So this is what we've talked about right now. What are operators? Let's understand operator. Operators are just functions, okay? A pure function which takes one observable has inputs and generates another observable as output. Subscribing to the output observable will also subscribe to the input observable. Think operators has Lodash functions, if you know what Lodash functions are. So if you look at this diagram, we have the data stream, the observable, and the operators in essence basically transform the data. So if we want any type of transformations, we can use the pipe method and put a series of functions, operators, that are going to be functions like map and filter. So here's an example of the observable that we've seen. And we need to subscribe to the observable. And this particular observable will count to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can see that it'll complete when it's equal to 5. And it will error out when it's greater than 3. And we'll have this pop-up message. And how do you define the operator? Again, you would import from RxJS operators, create the pipe, and we're going to map it. So we take a function argument, an anonymous one, and return the data, which is going to be transformed. So we're going to add round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4, 1, 5. This will just do nothing right now until we do the filtering here. And then we need to subscribe to it again. After we subscribe to it, we will be able to add other types of functions just like filtering. After we filter it, we'll be able to get the same output as we had before. So now let's just briefly talk about subjects. In RxJS, they're plain observables, right? And we need to understand that plain observables are unicast. And in order to understand this, we need to understand what it means to be, what unicast and multicasting means, since subjects are multicasted, and so that's how they differ from observables, because subjects are just a type of observable. So let's take an example, okay? So an example is like if you transmit a stream that sends IP packets to a single recipient on a network, that would be unicasting. So you would have to subscribe. If you subscribe multiple times against the original observer, you're not sharing the original observable. You're creating a new observable every time you subscribe. So in contrast, when you're multicasting, you can transmit or send the IP packets to a group of hosts on a network. So here's some examples. You have to do subscribe as many times as you want against the original observer. So you can see that right there. So another way to think of subjects, they're like event emitters. So in this example, we have an event emitter that's done normally. We have our service, injectable service, and we can basically do it the way that we normally do it by emitting the listening it through ng on init and subscribing to the event. But instead of calling emit, we would be calling next when we use subjects. So we can do the same thing. So when you click on the activate, we'll activate, it will click on activate, we will get activated. But using a subject, we just basically take out, substitute the event emitter with a subject from RxJS and use the next, as I just mentioned. And then after, you'd be able to get the same output. So let's just recap again. So this is a normal observable, which will be done passively. And it'll be wrapped through callbacks and events. And we can invoke next manually using and multicast, do multicasting as we have explained already. And so that could be triggered that way. So that's what a subject is. That's the end of my presentation right now, and if you want more information, you can go to the ReactiveX.io site. That's the official documentation. Learn rxjs.io, which is the link below it, is also a very good primer to learn. And I've got a lot of these resources from that Medium post that is posted there by Moen Derer. Right. I hope you have a fantastic day and happy learning.